He had only done the right thing. He'd found his boss, Elizabeth Vance, one of the senior partners at the firm, collapsed and incoherent in the sterile quiet of the deserted office building. He'd helped her up, tried to get her home, and when that failed, he'd brought her to the only safe place he knew, his own small apartment in Queens. But the next morning, when Elizabeth woke up in his daughter's bedroom, wearing clothes that weren't hers, one phone call threatened to unravel the meticulously constructed life he had built for himself and his little girl. For a black man, a single father named Marcus, there was no room for misunderstanding. The world didn't offer him the benefit of the doubt. So when he heard her terrified whisper into the phone, his heart stopped, because he knew what was coming next, and he wasn't sure he could survive it. The evening had started with a promise. A simple, sacred promise made to the one person who owned his entire world. "I'll be there, sweet pea," Marcus had said, his voice a low, warm rumble over the phone. "Front row. I've even got my special Go Amara clap ready." He could practically hear his 9-year-old daughter's smile through the receiver. Amara's school play, a whimsical production about talking animals saving a forest, was the single most important event on the planet as far as they were both concerned. He had her ladybug costume, a masterpiece of red felt and black pipe cleaners he'd stayed up late perfecting, folded carefully in his locker. The final bell for his shift as part of the building's maintenance crew was set to ring at 6 o'clock. The curtain would rise at 7:30. Plenty of time. Marcus moved through the gleaming, empty halls of Sterling, Vance and Locke with a practiced invisibility. For 8 years, this had been his domain after the lawyers and analysts had fled to their lives in the suburbs and high-rises. He was a ghost in a blue jumpsuit, mopping floors that reflected a skyline he couldn't afford, emptying wastebaskets filled with the remnants of $100 lunches. He knew the building's secrets, the hum of the HVAC system, the specific squeak of the third stall door in the men's room on the 42nd floor, the way the late afternoon sun hit the glass wall of the main conference room. He'd learned to be unobtrusive, efficient, and silent. A black man moving through these halls at night had to be. He couldn't afford to be perceived as a threat, a loiterer, or anything other than part of the building's machinery. His life, and more importantly, Amara's life, depended on his ability to remain unseen. He remembered his wife Jasmine telling him before she got sick, "You have a gentle soul, Marcus. Don't ever let the world harden it." It was a mantra he repeated to himself when a partner would walk past him without a glance, or when he'd find a half-eaten gourmet sandwich discarded that would have fed him and Amara for 2 days. He kept his soul gentle for Amara. He kept his head down for Amara. Everything was for her. Since Jasmine had passed 3 years ago from an illness that came on fast and cruel, that purpose had become his entire reason for being. Amara was his anchor, his North Star, the keeper of his gentleness. She had her mother's eyes, wide and full of an innocent wisdom that could stop him in his tracks. At 5:45, he was doing his final sweep of the executive floor. It was usually a ghost town by this hour, but tonight a sliver of light bled from under the door of the corner office. Elizabeth Vance's office. She was a newer partner, known for being brilliant, demanding, and utterly unapproachable. Marcus had only ever exchanged a handful of polite, perfunctory nods with her. He knew her coffee order, black, 2 sugars, from the cups in her trash, and the fact she favored expensive, sharp-smelling perfume that lingered long after she swept down the hall. He hesitated, his hand on his cart. His job was to clean, not to interact. But something felt off about the silence behind the door. It wasn't the focused quiet of late-night work. It was a heavy, unnerving stillness. He pushed his cart past her door, intending to finish his route and clock out. He had a ladybug who needed her wings. But as he rounded the corner, he heard a muffled thump, followed by the sound of glass shattering. It wasn't loud, but in the tomb-like silence of the skyscraper, it was a gunshot. His heart hammered against his ribs. Protocol was clear. Call security. Don't engage. But the memory of Jasmine's voice whispered to him. A gentle soul. He couldn't just walk away. He couldn't just call a stranger and leave it. He walked back to the door and knocked softly. "Miss Vance, everything all right in there?" Silence. "Miss Vance," he called again, a little louder this time. He pressed his ear to the cold wood. Nothing. The fear in his gut curdled. This was it. This was one of those moments. A crossroads where doing the right thing and doing the safe thing were two different paths. The safe thing was to call security, report the noise, and walk away. Let them handle it. Clock out. Go to Amara. But what if she was hurt? What if she needed help now? He tried the handle. It was unlocked. Slowly, cautiously, he pushed the door open. The scene inside made his breath catch. Elizabeth Vance was on the floor, tangled in the cords of a fallen lamp. A shattered picture frame lay near her hand, glass glittering on the plush carpet. An overturned bottle of whiskey had stained a stack of papers on her mahogany desk. The sharp, cloying smell of it filled the air. She was conscious, but barely. Her eyes were unfocused, her stylish silk blouse was askew, and she was muttering something he couldn't understand. "Miss Vance?" Marcus knelt beside her, careful not to touch her. "Are you hurt?" She tried to push herself up, her movements clumsy and uncoordinated. He left," she slurred, her words thick. "After everything, he just gone." Her face, usually a mask of formidable composure, was blotchy and streaked with tears. She looked utterly broken. Marcus checked his watch. 6:10. His stomach twisted into a knot. "Miss Vance, we need to get you up. Can you stand?" He offered a hand, and she flinched, pulling away. "Don't touch me." Okay, he said, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "I'm not going to hurt you. I work here. Maintenance. My name is Marcus." He spoke slowly, calmly, the way he did when Amara woke up from a nightmare. He saw people, not job titles. And right now, he saw a person in a deep, dark well of pain. He needed to get out of there. He needed to be at that school auditorium. He could picture Amara's face, scanning the crowd for him, her hopeful expression slowly dimming. It was a physical pain, the thought of disappointing her. It was the one thing he had sworn he would never do. Promises to his daughter were scripture. "Let me call a car for you, Miss Vance," he said, pulling out his phone. "Or a friend? A family member?" She just shook her head, another wave of tears spilling down her cheeks. "No one. There's no one." The words were so quiet, so desolate, they cut through the haze of alcohol and landed right in Marcus's chest. He knew that feeling. The suffocating loneliness that comes after a great loss. He checked his watch again. 6:25. Panic was beginning to set in. He could call security, but what would they do? 2 burly guards would manhandle her. Gossip would spread through the firm like wildfire by morning, and her carefully curated image would be shattered, just like the picture frame on her floor. It felt cruel. It felt wrong. This was the moment. The choice. Amara's beaming face on one side, a broken woman with no one to call on the other. He thought of Jasmine, who once spent an hour sitting on a cold bus stop bench with a crying stranger. "Everyone just needs to be seen, Marcus," she told him later, "especially when they're falling apart." He took a deep breath, the scent of whiskey and expensive perfume filling his lungs. He was going to break his promise, and it was going to break his heart. "Okay," he said softly, more to himself than to her. "Okay, we're going to get you home." He made the call that felt like a betrayal. He dialed Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman next door who was his and Amara's lifeline. She'd been their angel since Jasmine passed, a surrogate grandmother with a quick smile and an endless supply of cookies. "Mrs. Patterson, it's Marcus." "Marcus, honey, You on your way? Amara's practically vibrating with excitement. She's got her antennae on and everything. His throat tightened. Listen, something's come up at work. A situation. I'm going to be late. Really late. I don't think I'm going to make it for the start of the play. The silence on the other end was heavy with unspoken understanding. Mrs. Patterson knew how much this meant to him. Oh, honey, is everything okay? I'm fine. It's just someone needs help. I can't walk away. Of course you can't, she said, her voice soft but firm. It was absolution. You're a good man, Marcus. Don't you worry about a thing. I'll get Amara to the school, and I'll record the whole play for you. Every second. I'll tell her you're a superhero on a mission. Can you put her on for a second? He heard the phone being passed, and then his daughter's small, hopeful voice. Daddy? Hey, sweet pea. He squeezed his eyes shut, fighting to keep his voice steady. Daddy's got a little problem here at work. I'm so sorry, but I might miss your show. Oh. The single word was a tiny pinprick to his soul. It was filled with a universe of disappointment. Is it a big problem? It's a person who's sad, baby. Like the kind of sad where they can't find their way home. He didn't know how else to explain it. There was a pause. He imagined her chewing on her lip, her brow furrowed in thought. Okay, Daddy, she said, her voice suddenly resolute. Mommy always said helping sad people is the most important job. Just clap extra loud when you watch the video, okay? Tears pricked his eyes. Out of the mouths of babes. She had given him permission. Love you too, Daddy. Break a leg. Wait. Love you too, Daddy. Break a leg. Wait. No, that's for me. You fix the problem. He hung up the phone. A strange mix of profound grief and profound love washing over him. He had disappointed his daughter, but she understood. She always understood. He tucked the phone away, his resolve hardening. Now, he just had to fix the problem. Getting Elizabeth Vance out of the building was an ordeal. He managed to get her to her feet and steered her toward the service elevator, his hand hovering near her elbow but never making contact unless she stumbled. She was a dead weight, leaning against the elevator wall, her eyes closed. He bypassed the main lobby, taking her out through the loading dock to avoid the front desk security. The night air was cold, and it seemed to sober her slightly. Where we going? She mumbled, shivering in her thin blouse. I'm getting you a cab. Getting you home, he said, flagging down a yellow taxi. He helped her into the back, the driver watching them with a wary eye. Marcus knew what he saw. A black man in a janitor's uniform with a disheveled, drunk white woman. Every alarm bell in his head was screaming. This was dangerous territory. Where to? The driver asked, his gaze fixed on Marcus in the rearview mirror. Marcus looked at Elizabeth. Ms. Vance, your address. She mumbled something that sounded like Sycamore 22. 22 Sycamore, Marcus told the driver, who just grunted and pulled into traffic. Marcus handed him a $50 bill from the emergency cash he kept in his wallet. Get her to the door. Make sure she gets inside safely. The driver nodded, his expression softening slightly at the sight of the money. Got it, Chief. Marcus watched the taxi disappear down the street, a wave of relief washing over him. He had done it, he had helped, and now it was over. He could go home. He checked the time, 8:15. The play was already halfway through. A fresh wave of guilt hit him. He started the long walk to the subway station, his feet feeling like lead. He had just reached the corner when his phone rang. It was the cab driver. Hey, Chief, we got a problem, the driver said, his voice tense. There ain't no 22 Sycamore. The street ends at 14, and your lady friend here is passed out. I can't get her to wake up. I can't just leave her here. What do you want me to do? Marcus's blood ran cold. He swore under his breath. Of course, it couldn't be that simple. He looked around at the bustling New York street. He couldn't bring her back to the office. He couldn't take her to a hospital. She wasn't hurt, just drunk, and it would create a paper trail that could ruin her career. He didn't know any of her friends. He couldn't ask the driver to take her to a hotel, option that made every nerve ending in his body tingle with excitement. The one option that made every nerve ending in his body scream in protest. "Turn around," Marcus said, his voice heavy with resignation. "Come back and get me. I'm at the corner of 54th and Lex. I'll take her to my place." It was the stupidest, most dangerous decision he had ever made in his life. But as he stood there on the cold pavement, the distant sound of sirens wailing in the city, he knew it was also the only one his conscience would allow him to make. He was taking a lit stick of dynamite home, and he was praying it wouldn't explode. The cab ride to his apartment in Queens was the longest 20 minutes of Marcus's life. Elizabeth was slumped against the seat, completely passed out. The driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror, his expression a mixture of suspicion and pity. Marcus just stared out the window, his mind racing. He was bringing a powerful, wealthy white woman, his boss, to his small apartment while she was unconscious. He tried to imagine explaining this to a police officer. The words wouldn't even form. The narrative was already written. He was a black man. She was a vulnerable white woman. The story wrote itself, and it never, ever ended well for him. When they arrived, he paid the driver again, this time adding another 20 for his trouble and his silence. Getting Elizabeth up the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment was a Herculean effort. She was limp and unresponsive. He half carried, half dragged her, his back screaming in protest. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking, and finally managed to get the door open. The apartment was small but immaculate. Jasmine had taught him the dignity of a clean home, and he'd maintained it obsessively since her passing. On the wall were framed photos of him, Jasmine, and a much younger Amara, their smiles radiating a warmth that felt like it belonged to another lifetime. The air smelled of the lemon polish he used on the weekends. He looked at Elizabeth, then at his own small bedroom. He just couldn't. His room felt too intimate, too much his own space. Then his eyes fell on the door to Amara's room. It was the only other option. Mrs. Patterson was keeping her overnight, a kindness she often extended when he had to work a double shift. Her room was a sanctuary, a pink and purple explosion of a 9-year-old's dreams. Stuffed animals were piled on the bed, and her latest drawings were taped to the walls. Carefully, he guided Elizabeth into the room and gently lowered her onto Amara's bed, on top of the unicorn-themed comforter. Her expensive heels looked absurd next to a fluffy pink rug. Her sharp, tailored suit felt out of place amongst the soft, childish clutter. Hesitated for a long moment. His heart hesitated for a long moment, his heart pounding. He went to his own closet and pulled out a drawer he hadn't opened in months. Inside were Jasmine's things, folded neatly. He picked out a simple, soft cotton t-shirt and a pair of worn-in sweatpants. They were modest, comfortable, and clean. He laid them on the chair next to the bed. Then he did something he knew was critical. He took out a piece of paper and a pen from the desk in the living room. His handwriting was neat, deliberate. "Ms. Vance," he wrote, "you were unwell at the office. I couldn't get your correct address, and it wasn't safe to leave you. My name is Marcus Jones. I work in maintenance at your firm. You are in my daughter's bedroom in my apartment. I have left some clean clothes on the chair for you if you wish to change. I will be in the living room. You are safe." He propped the note up on the bedside table next to a glass of water he'd poured. Then he backed out of the room, pulling the door almost completely shut, leaving it open just a crack, so he could hear if she stirred or needed anything. He looked at the couch in the living room, but it felt too far away. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to be a guardian, a protector. He grabbed a pillow from the couch and a spare blanket from the hall closet. He then settled himself on the floor, his back against the wall right outside Amara's bedroom door. It was uncomfortable, but it felt right. It felt honorable. He was a sentinel, not a threat. And he prayed that when the sun came up, she would see the difference. He closed his eyes, the image of Amara's disappointed face flashing in his mind, and fell into a restless, anxious sleep. The first light of dawn was filtering through the living room window when a sound from inside the bedroom jolted him awake, of truth. He heard footsteps, hesitant and. He sat up, his heart immediately starting to pound. This was it, the moment of truth. He heard footsteps, hesitant and soft. Then a sharp, indrawn breath. He could picture the scene perfectly. Elizabeth waking up in an unfamiliar child's room, her head throbbing, her memory a black hole. He heard the faint crinkle of paper and imagined her reading his note. For a few seconds, there was silence. He held his breath, hoping, praying she would understand. And then he heard her voice. It was a raw, terrified whisper, and it sliced right through him. He heard her fumbling with her phone, the frantic tapping of fingers. "Claire! Oh my God! Claire, wake up!" Her voice was choked with panic. "Something's happened. I don't know where I am." Marcus stood perfectly still, his back pressed against the wall. He felt the blood drain from his face. He knew how this would play out. He had seen this movie 100 times, and it always ended the same way. A black man, his drunk white boss, in his house. It didn't matter what actually happened. The optics were a conviction. "I'm in some apartment," she continued, her voice trembling. It looks like a kid's room. There are drawings on the wall. I'm wearing clothes that aren't mine. A t-shirt and sweatpants. Claire, I don't remember anything after I was in my office. Nothing." Marcus closed his eyes. Every word was a nail in his coffin. He could feel his carefully constructed world beginning to splinter. His job, his reputation, his ability to provide for Amara, his very freedom. It was all hanging by the thread of this one phone call. "There's a note," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It says a man from my office brought me here. A maintenance worker. He says he's in the living room. Oh my God, Claire. What if he did something? I feel so sick. You're a lawyer. What do I do? Should I call the police?" The words "call the police" landed like a physical blow. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. That was the end of the line. Once the police were involved, the story was no longer his to tell. It would be twisted into something ugly and unrecognizable. He would be a suspect, not a savior, a predator, not a protector. He thought of Amara. He thought of having to explain this to her. He thought of her having to visit him behind glass. The thought was so unbearable it almost brought him to his knees. He stayed frozen, listening. He could hear the faint, tinny sound of the other woman's voice through the phone, urgent and sharp. He didn't need to hear the words to know what she was saying. "Don't touch anything. Lock yourself in the bathroom. We're calling the police right now." He had one chance. He could burst in there and try to explain. But what would that look like? An angry, defensive black man confronting a terrified white woman. It would only confirm her worst fears. His only hope was to remain silent, to let his actions from the night before speak for him. The note, the glass of water, the modest clothes he'd left for her, the fact that he'd slept on the hard floor outside her door like a watchdog. Would it be enough? Or was the narrative of race and power already too strong to overcome? He heard a click, the sound of Amara's bedroom door being locked from the inside. The finality of it echoed in the silent apartment. He sank back down to the floor, the weight of the world crushing him. He had tried to be a good man, to follow the lessons Jasmine had taught him. He had missed his daughter's big night to help a stranger in need. And this was his reward. A locked door, a terrified phone call, and the impending sirens that would come to tear his life apart. He put his head in his hands. the gentle soul his wife had cherished now bracing for a world that was anything but. Time seemed to warp and stretch in the suffocating silence of the hallway. Every creak of the old building, every distant car horn from the street below, sounded like the approach of his doom. He sat with his knees pulled to his chest, a prisoner in his own home, waiting for the inevitable knock on the door. He tried to rehearse what he would say, how he would explain the unexplainable. But the words felt like ash in his mouth. The truth seemed so flimsy against the weight of perception. Inside the room, he could hear the muffled sounds of Elizabeth's conversation with her friend, Claire. The words were indistinct, but the tone was frantic, punctuated by long, listening pauses. He imagined Claire on the other end, her legal mind spinning, constructing a case, painting him as a villain. He was a faceless, nameless maintenance worker, an easy target. He wondered if Elizabeth had even registered his name from the note. To her, he was just a shadow, a potential threat that had materialized in her moment of weakness. He looked around his small living room, at the life he had built. The worn but comfortable armchair where he and Amara read books together. The small dining table where they did homework. The photo on the mantelpiece of Jasmine, her smile so vibrant it felt like she could step right out of the frame. He had worked so hard to create this pocket of safety, this island of peace for his daughter. And now, a single act of kindness was about to sink it. He thought about Amara, safe at Mrs. Patterson's house, probably waking up and asking for pancakes. The innocence of it, the simple, beautiful normality of it, felt like a world away. What would Mrs. Patterson think when the police cars showed up? What would the neighbors say? The web of whispers and assumptions would spread, and the stain would be impossible to wash out. He wasn't just Marcus anymore. He was that man, the one the police came for. He heard a new sound from the room, the faint click of a drawer opening, then closing. What was she looking for? A weapon? He tensed, his body coiled tight. Then he heard a different sound, a soft, almost inaudible gasp. It wasn't a gasp of fear. It was a gasp of something else. Realization, perhaps. He strained to listen. The frantic whispering into the phone had stopped. For a full minute, there was absolute silence. He wondered what she had found. What could possibly change the trajectory of this disaster? Then he heard her voice again, but it was different. The panic was gone, replaced by a strange, quiet tone. "Claire, wait, hold on." A long pause. "There's a drawing here, taped to the mirror." He heard the rustle of paper. It's a little girl and a man. They're holding hands, and above it, it says, "My daddy, my hero." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. It was one of Amara's drawings, full of pride. And there are full of pride. And there are photos on her dresser, Elizabeth continued, her voice growing softer, more uncertain. It's him, the maintenance guy, with his family, a wife, and the little girl from the drawing. He heard her move across the room. "The clothes I'm wearing, they're folded neatly in a drawer under some other women's clothes. It's like a memory drawer." He heard the tinny voice of Claire protesting on the other end, but Elizabeth spoke over her. "No, listen. The door, I can see under it. There's a blanket and a pillow on the floor out there." "He slept on the floor, Claire. He slept on the floor outside my door." The pieces were clicking into place for her. The drawing, the family photos, the respectful distance. The evidence of his character was scattered around the room like breadcrumbs, leading her away from the dark path of fear and towards the complicated, messy truth. "He wrote me a note," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "He said I was in his daughter's room. His daughter's room. Oh my God, Claire, what if I'm wrong? What if he was just helping me?" The front door of the apartment suddenly clicked open, and Marcus's heart leaped into his throat. Mrs. Patterson stood in the doorway, holding a sleepy Amara by the hand. They both froze, taking in the scene. Marcus crumpled on the floor outside Amara's locked bedroom door, his face a mask of despair. "Marcus, honey, what on earth?" Mrs. Patterson began. "Daddy." Amara's voice was small and confused. She let go of Mrs. Patterson's hand and ran to him. "Daddy, why are you sleeping on the floor? Are you okay?" She wrapped her small arms around his neck, and Marcus hugged her back fiercely, burying his face in her hair. The scent of her, a mixture of pancake syrup and baby shampoo, was the most grounding thing in the world. He was so lost in the relief of holding her that he barely registered the sound of the bedroom door unlocking. Elizabeth stood in the doorway. She had changed back into her wrinkled suit from the night before. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and wide. She looked at Marcus, then at Amara, then at Mrs. Patterson. Her gaze fell on the pillow and blanket on the floor, a tangible testament to his vigil. The narrative she had been fed by her fear and by her friend was crumbling before her eyes. She was no longer looking at a potential predator. She was looking at a father who had slept on the floor to protect her honor, even at the risk of his own life. Amara, ever the unfiltered soul, looked from her father to the strange woman in her doorway. She didn't see a threat. She saw what she had been taught to see. A person who was hurting. "Is that the sad lady, Daddy?" Amara whispered, her voice carrying in the silent apartment. "The one who couldn't find her way home." Elizabeth flinched as if struck. The simple, innocent question from a child cut through all the layers of fear, suspicion, and class. It reframed the entire event in 2 perfect sentences. She wasn't a victim of a crime. She was just a sad lady who had lost her way. And he was the man who had helped her find it. Elizabeth's eyes welled with tears, but these were different from the drunken, self-pitying tears of the night before. These were tears of shame, of gratitude, of a profound and shattering realization. She was still holding her phone, Claire's frantic voice still buzzing from the earpiece. She lifted the phone to her mouth, her eyes never leaving Marcus's face. "Claire, I need you to listen to me very carefully," she said, her voice different now, clearer, steadier. "Nothing happened, you hear me? Nothing happened. He helped me. He saved me when no one else would." She took a shaky breath. "He has a daughter, a beautiful little girl. He missed her school play last night because he was making sure I was safe. He slept on the floor of her bedroom. My God, Claire, he slept on the floor." Marcus felt a fraction of the crushing weight lift from his chest. Just slightly. Just enough to breathe. "Don't call anyone," Elizabeth commanded. "Don't say a word. I was wrong. I was so wrong." She ended the call, and the silence that followed was thick with unspoken apologies. She looked at Marcus, her expression one of deep, humbling remorse. I am so sorry," she whispered. The words were inadequate, a pebble against a mountain of what he had just endured, but they were a start. They were the beginning of the truth. Before we continue with Marcus's story, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Let us know in the comments below, and if stories about everyday heroes and unexpected connections resonate with you, please consider subscribing to our channel. We love seeing how far these stories can travel. The air in the small apartment was thick with the residue of the morning's terror. Amara, sensing the tension, clung to Marcus's leg, her big brown eyes moving from her father's weary face to the strange, sad woman in her bedroom doorway. Mrs. Patterson stood by the entrance, her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of fierce protection and shrewd assessment. She was a gatekeeper, and Elizabeth had not yet earned passage. Elizabeth took a hesitant step forward, her hands clenched at her sides. "Mr. Jones." "Marcus," she corrected herself, the formal title suddenly feeling absurd. "I don't have the words to tell you how sorry I am, for what I thought, for what I almost did." Her gaze flickered towards the phone she had just put down. "I was scared. I didn't remember anything and She trailed off, shaking her head. That's not an excuse. There is no excuse. Marcus slowly got to his feet, pulling Amara close against him. He was exhausted, his body aching from the floor, his mind reeling from the emotional whiplash. He looked at this powerful woman who just hours ago held his entire future in the palm of her hand, and he didn't feel anger. He just felt a profound weariness. "I understand you were scared," he said, his voice raspy. It was the most grace he could muster. Mrs. Patterson, however, was not feeling so gracious. "You understand?" she interjected, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Child, do you have any idea what you almost did to this man? To this family? A phone call. That's all it would have taken. One phone call and his life would have been over. For what? For being a good Samaritan? For showing you a kindness you clearly don't run into very often?" Elizabeth flinched under the older woman's verbal assault, but she didn't look away. She deserved it. She knew she did. "You're right," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "You are 100% right. I was blind. I didn't see a person. I saw a stereotype, and I am so deeply ashamed." It was this admission, this raw, unflinching acceptance of her own prejudice, that finally pierced through Marcus's exhaustion. She wasn't making excuses. She wasn't minimizing. She was owning the ugliness of her fear. Amara, who had been listening intently, tugged on her father's shirt. "Daddy," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her eyes are leaking again. I think she needs a hug. The simple, profound innocence of the comment broke the tension. A small, watery laugh escaped Elizabeth's lips. Marcus managed a faint, tired smile and squeezed his daughter's shoulder. "Maybe later, sweet pea." "Of course," she said, nodding quickly. She was about to say something else, but he interrupted her. "No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm not going to let you go home. I'm going to take care of you, of course, she said, nodding quickly. She looked around the apartment, at the evidence of a life so different from her own, a life rich in love, if not in money. Is there anything I can do to repay you? For the taxi? For everything? She was reaching for her wallet, her hand fumbling with the clasp of her expensive purse. It was her default setting. Transactional. Problems could be solved with money. Marcus held up a hand, stopping her. "No," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "You don't repay this with money. That's not what this was about." He paused, choosing his words carefully. He wasn't just speaking to her, he was teaching her something essential. "You want to repay me? Just see people, Not their jobs, not the color of their skin. Just see the person, that's all. The lesson landed. Elizabeth's hand dropped from her purse. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Not as a janitor, not as a threat, but as Marcus Jones. A father, a widower, a man of quiet, unshakable integrity who had sacrificed his own peace of mind for a stranger's well-being. And maybe, he added, a wry, tired smile touching his lips, next time, call a friend before you finish the bottle. A genuine smile flickered across her face, the first he'd ever seen. I'll work on that. She gathered her things, her movements still a bit shaky. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. Her eyes were on Amara. You have a very special little girl, she said to Marcus. I know, he replied, his voice full of a love so deep it was the bedrock of his entire existence. She's my whole world. Elizabeth nodded, a world of understanding passing between them in that moment. That's enough drama for one morning, that's enough drama for one morning. Amara, honey, go wash your hands. I brought pancakes. Marcus, you sit down before you fall down. You look like you've been through a war. He sank into his armchair, the one that molded perfectly to his frame, and let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for 12 hours. Amara came and curled up on his lap, tucking her head under his chin. Daddy, she said quietly, I'm glad you helped the sad lady. Mommy would have been proud. Marcus closed his eyes, holding his daughter tight. I think so too, sweet pea. I think so too. He had been to the edge of the abyss. He had looked into the void where misunderstanding and prejudice could swallow a man whole. But he had been pulled back, not by a lawyer, not by a stroke of luck, but by the simple, undeniable power of his own character, reflected in the eyes of his child. Later that day, after the fog of exhaustion had lifted slightly, Marcus sat with Mrs. Patterson at his small dining table, a plate of cold pancakes sitting untouched in front of him. Amara was in her room, humming as she organized her stuffed animals, the morning's frightening intrusion already forgotten, as children do. She called the office, you know, Mrs. Patterson said, stirring her tea. Marcus looked up, confused. Who did? That Elizabeth woman, she said, taking a sip. Called the main security desk at your building. I heard her on the phone with her friend. She said she was going to make another call. I guess she did. What did she say? Marcus asked, a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach again. She told the head of security that she had a medical emergency last night, after hours, and that you, Marcus Jones, had stayed with her until her family could be reached, ensuring her safety and privacy. She called you a model employee and a true gentleman. Said the firm was lucky to have a man of your character on staff. Mrs. Patterson smiled, a rare wide grin. She's building you a fortress, honey, making sure that if any whispers start, the official story is already set in stone, a story that makes you a hero. Marcus stared at his hands. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had narrowly survived a lightning strike. But he understood what Elizabeth was doing. She wasn't just apologizing. She was actively protecting him. She was using her power, the same power that could have destroyed him, to shield him. It was a corrective action, a tangible act of restitution. She also wanted me to give you this, Mrs. Patterson said, sliding a small, thick envelope across the table. It was from the firm, embossed with the Sterling Vance & Locke logo. Marcus eyed it with suspicion. I told her I didn't want her money. It's not from her. It's from the firm's employee discretionary fund or some such nonsense, Mrs. Patterson explained. Apparently it's for employees who go above and beyond. Looks like she made a very strong case to whoever holds the purse strings. He opened the envelope. Inside was a check and a short, typed letter. The check was for an amount that made his breath catch in his throat. It was more than he made in 3 months. It was enough to pay off the last of the medical bills from Jasmine's illness. It was a safety net, a cushion, a breath of fresh air he hadn't realized he was suffocating without. The letter was brief, formally thanking him for his exemplary service and integrity. It was signed by one of the founding partners, a man Marcus had never even seen. He put the check down on the table, his mind reeling. This was the transactional solution he had rejected, but it was laundered through corporate channels, making it feel less like a handout and more like a bonus. It was Elizabeth's way of helping without wounding his pride. A smart move. A lawyer's move. "Well," Mrs. Patterson prompted, "it's life-changing money, Marcus." "It is," he admitted, his voice quiet. But it felt complicated. He had been rewarded for something that had almost cost him everything. He looked at the check, then at the photo of Jasmine on the mantel. He thought about the fear, the cold dread that had consumed him that morning. No amount of money could erase that, but it could make the future a little easier. It could mean a better life for Amara. "There's one more thing," Mrs. Patterson said, her tone softening. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. "I know it's not the same, but I kept my promise." She turned the phone towards him. On the screen, a video began to play. It was Amara's school play. The quality was a bit shaky, the sound muffled, but it was all there. The stage was decorated with painted cardboard trees. A chorus of children dressed as squirrels and rabbits were singing off-key. And then, the camera zoomed in on a single, radiant ladybug who had just entered stage left. It was Amara. She delivered her lines with a seriousness that was utterly charming, her little pipe cleaner antennae bobbing with every word. Marcus watched, his heart swelling in his chest. He saw her scan the audience for a brief moment, her hopeful face falling just a fraction when she didn't see him. But then she straightened her shoulders, found her focus, and delivered her next line with gusto. She was resilient. She was strong. She was his daughter. Mrs. Patterson had filmed the entire thing, just as she'd promised. At the end, during the curtain call, as the kids took their bows to thunderous applause, the camera panned across the proud, smiling parents. Then it turned around. Mrs. Patterson's face appeared on the screen. "She was wonderful, Marcus," she said to the camera, her voice full of warmth. "Absolutely wonderful." Then Amara popped into the frame, her face flushed with excitement. "Daddy," she squealed into the phone. "Did you see me? I was the best ladybug. I remembered all my lines. And I hope you helped the sad lady feel better. I love you." She blew a kiss at the camera, and the video ended. Marcus didn't realize he was crying until a tear splashed onto the back of his hand. It wasn't a tear of sadness or fear. It was a tear of overwhelming, soul-shaking love. He had missed her performance. He had broken his promise. But she wasn't broken. She was proud. She was forgiving. Her love was unconditional. He looked at the check on the table, a symbol of the world's apology. Then he looked at the phone, a symbol of his daughter's grace. And he knew, with absolute certainty, which one was worth more. The money was paper. Her love was everything. The next week at work was strange. Marcus went about his duties with his usual quiet efficiency, but something had shifted. The invisibility he had so carefully cultivated was beginning to fray at the edges. A few of the analysts on the 38th floor, people who had never acknowledged his existence before, suddenly started greeting him by name. "Morning, Marcus." "Have a good one, Marcus." It was unsettling. He wasn't sure if it was a result of some firm-wide memo or if Elizabeth had personally spread the word of his quiet heroism. He saw Elizabeth a few times. The first time, they passed in the hallway. The usual power dynamic was gone, replaced by a shared, secret history. She met his eyes and gave him a small, respectful nod. It wasn't a boss acknowledging an employee, it was one person acknowledging another. He nodded back. No words were needed. The second time, he was cleaning the main conference room late one evening. She was there, packing up her briefcase. The room was dark, save for the glow of the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Working late again," he stated, more of an observation than a question. She looked up, a weary smile on her face. "Old habits." But she held up a bottle of sparkling water. "I'm rehydrating responsibly now." He chuckled, a genuine relaxed sound. "Good to hear." They stood in a comfortable silence for a moment, the hum of the building's climate control filling the space between them. "I saw your daughter's drawing," she said suddenly, her voice soft. "The one of you. My daddy, my hero. She's a talented artist." "She gets it from her mom," Marcus said, the mention of Jasmine feeling natural, not painful. Jasmine could draw anything. "She must have been a wonderful person," Elizabeth said gently. "She was the best," Marcus agreed, his voice thick with a love that time had not diminished. "She taught me pretty much everything that matters." Elizabeth nodded, her gaze distant. "My father taught me that winning was the only thing that mattered. That vulnerability was a weakness to be exploited in others and eliminated in yourself." She looked around the opulent conference room. "It gets you a corner office, but it leaves you alone, in the dark, with a bottle of whiskey and no one to call." It was the most vulnerable, honest thing he had ever heard a person like her admit. She was giving him a glimpse behind the curtain, showing him the rot at the core of her gilded life. "Everyone deserves someone to call," Marcus said quietly, echoing the sentiment his wife had lived by. "I'm learning that," she replied. She zipped her briefcase and slung it over her shoulder. "Thank you, Marcus, not just for that night, but for this. You were kind. You chose dignity, mine, and you were kind. You chose dignity, mine and yours, over convenience. That's not nothing. That's everything." She left him there in the quiet darkness, the city lights twinkling like a million fallen stars. He thought about her words. Presence over presence. Dignity over convenience. It was the ethos he had tried to live by, the code he had tried to instill in Amara. He had always thought of it as a quiet, personal philosophy. He never imagined it could be something that could change someone else's world. A few weeks later, Marcus was called into the office of the head of human resources. He walked in with a familiar sense of dread, his mind immediately cataloguing every possible infraction. But the HR director, a woman with a warm smile, waved him to a chair. "Marcus, thank you for coming in. We have a new opportunity we'd like to discuss with you." She seemed a little nervous, which was unusual. She explained that the firm was launching a new internal mentorship program. It wasn't for the lawyers, it was for the vast network of support staff, the maintenance crews, the mailroom clerks, the cafeteria workers. The goal was to provide resources for career development, continuing education, and personal growth. "The program needs a director," the HR woman said, leaning forward. "Someone who understands the challenges our staff face. Someone who commands respect not because of a title, but because of their character. Someone who embodies the firm's stated values of integrity and community." She slid a folder across the desk to him. "Ms. Vance designed the program herself and secured the funding. She was very insistent that you were the only person for the job." Marcus opened the folder. It was a formal job offer. Director of Staff Development and Mentorship. Would actually secure his future. It would actually secure his future. It wasn't a handout. It was a door. A door to a new life. A new way of providing for Amara. It was a job that would use his heart and his head, not just his hands. It was a position where he would be seen, visible, valued. He thought back to all the years he had spent trying to be invisible, to avoid making a single mistake. He had lived his life in a defensive crouch, always bracing for a blow. But that night, he had made a different choice, a dangerous, reckless choice to be unabashedly human. And somehow, against all odds, it had led him here. He looked up from the folder, a slow smile spreading across his face. "When do I start?" he asked. The final act of the story unfolded not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet, steady transformation. Marcus accepted the new position, trading his blue jumpsuit for a simple button-down shirt and slacks. The first few weeks were a strange adjustment. He had a small office on a lower floor, not with the partners, but accessible to the people he was now charged with helping. He spent his days not mopping floors, but talking to people. He listened to the dreams of the young woman in the mailroom who wanted to take night classes to become a paralegal. He helped the older man from the kitchen staff figure out his retirement benefits. He set up workshops on financial literacy and conflict resolution. He was good at it. His natural empathy and quiet, steady demeanor made people trust him. He wasn't a boss. He was an advocate. He and Elizabeth settled into a new, comfortable rhythm. They were friends, an unlikely quiet friendship that existed in the spaces between their two vastly different worlds. Sometimes she would stop by his office at the end of the day, not as a partner checking on a program, but as a friend checking in. They would talk about their day, about books, about the city. She told him she had started seeing a therapist. She was reconnecting with a sister she hadn't spoken to in years. She was dismantling the fortress her father had built and was tentatively learning how to build a home instead. One afternoon, she found him staring at a flyer for Amara's spring concert. "Big night?" she asked with a gentle smile. "The biggest," he confirmed. "She has a solo this time, on the recorder." "The recorder," Elizabeth said with a mock-serious expression. "A notoriously difficult instrument. She must be a virtuoso." "You have no idea," he laughed. "The sounds that have been coming out of our apartment for the last month. I should be getting hazard pay." On the night of the concert, Marcus was there an hour early. He saved a seat in the front row right in the center. He wore his best shirt. He watched Amara walk onto the stage with her class, her eyes immediately finding him in the crowd. She gave him a huge, radiant smile, and he felt it in the deepest part of his soul. When it was her turn for her solo, she stepped forward, her small recorder held in her hands. She took a deep breath, looked right at him, and began to play. The tune was simple, a little shaky in places, but she played it with all her heart. To Marcus, it was the most beautiful music in the world. He clapped so loud when she finished that the teacher gave him a playful glare. After the concert, as he was hugging Amara and telling her how proud he was, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Elizabeth standing there, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "For the virtuoso," she said, handing the flowers to a wide-eyed Amara. "Wow, thank you." Amara beamed, burying her face in the blossoms. "I hope you don't mind," Elizabeth said quietly to Marcus. "I was in the neighborhood. I just wanted to see the star of the show." "Thank you for coming," Marcus said, and he meant it. Her presence wasn't an intrusion. It was a testament to how far they had both come. They stood there for a moment, a tableau that would have been unthinkable just a few months prior. The working-class father, the high-powered executive, and the little girl who had unknowingly bridged the chasm between them. They weren't from the same world, but they had found common ground. A shared space built on respect, forgiveness, and the simple recognition of each other's humanity. For years, Marcus had lived his life trying to be invisible, trying to avoid mistakes, trying to never give anyone a reason to question his character. But that one night, he had made a different choice, a dangerous choice, and somehow, against all odds, it had led him here. To a better job, a more secure future, and a new, unexpected friend. Maybe the world wasn't fair. Maybe it never would be. But he had learned that there were still people who could see him for who he really was. People who could look past the uniform, past the color of his skin, and see the man underneath. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. From invisible to unforgettable, Marcus's journey proved that doing the right thing matters, especially when it costs you almost everything. His story is a powerful reminder that character isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in the quiet, difficult choices we make when we think no one is watching. If you believe in stories about everyday heroes and the profound power of human decency, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more content that inspires and uplifts. We encourage you to share this story with someone who needs a reminder that integrity, kindness, and courage can truly change the world, one small act at a time. And let us know in the comments, what does the word hero mean to you?